whenever she talked to him because he didn't like to be looked at by a Western woman. Such women were harlots, sadly. She smiled as she pushed the button to open the gate. There were harlots in the book, but she acted nothing like them. Too bad. The sheik would only consider reinforced masonry. He'd wanted to buy a house for his daughter, who was a freshman at USC, but nothing had been good enough. Plus, the whole family hated every neighborhood. Only Bel Air they liked, but the daughter finally said no to the house there, near the country club, claiming it was depressing. Also, the smell in the 4-car garage was weird. Mothballs. Had the person who lived in the house died? Well, yes, in fact, she'd wanted to say, because that's the only way anyone ever leaves a house this stunning. Of course, she hadn't admitted it. Buyers didn't like houses where death had occurred. It seemed to them a bad omen, and in a sense they were right, since it was true that at a certain point you might live in a house, and at another point, typically later, you would die. It's not my listing, as you know. I think maybe they moved to Montenegro, or was it Monaco? I can certainly research it for you. The sheik had actually lost his temper when the daughter said the house depressed her. He let loose a blistering stream of angry Arabic, but his daughter was spoiled and stubborn. Almost a week of showing them houses, and in the end he'd put her up at a hotel in Beverly Hills, where she would live in a suite for 4 years. Here were the new clients, the dictator, his driver, and another guy she hadn't met before. Frankly, she could picture any one of them holding a machete. The driver was a white guy from South Africa. She'd guessed last time from the accent. And the new man, black like the dictator, was huge and muscle-bound. They were more like bodyguards than drivers/handlers, actually. Did weapons bulge under their jackets? "Hello," said the driver. The other two just nodded in greeting. She smiled, welcomed the men, stood back as they filed past. She'd worn 3-inch wedges instead of 4-inch pumps, in case, like the sheik, they were opposed to loose women. That was the thing about American men. In a way, it was comforting. When push came to shove, no woman could be too loose for them. The dictator stepped through the doorway second. The other two seemed to be bracketing him. Maybe the bodyguard in back, his shoulders broad as a wall, was supposed to take the main guy's head bullet. She glanced out at their Land Rover, shining on the driveway. Silver and top of the line. It retailed at $200K, if she remembered right from Bobby T's boring car monologues in the break room. She had to drive a status car too, in her line of work, so she paid through the nose for her lease. But some joker had rear-ended it yesterday in a parking lot, and now the bumper was hanging half off. It wasn't presentable. She'd had to park it on the street. For a second, she expected to see the glint of a gun in the sun, barrel protruding from a Japanese maple. She closed the door. The 3 men stood at the picture window with their backs to her, looking out over the canyon, the downtown skyline in the distance. This house always seemed to be waiting for the mudslide that would drag it down the cliff, snagging those giant spiky plants as it fell. Chunks of frame and plaster would be dangling off plant stalks as beds and espresso makers tumbled down the hillside. Till that day came, 2.8 million, if you don't mind. She was fine living in the flats. Sure, a fault line might split open into an abyss beneath your feet. It still seemed like a better bet. "Let me show you the exterior space," she said, and opened the doors onto the deck. She told them the square footage, mentioned the multicolored underwater lights in the lap pool. Personally, she thought the lights were a little Miami, but you never knew what could impress buyers. They followed her down to the pool area, where the driver and bodyguard milled around and the dictator positioned himself at the far end, staring into the water. "Now," she said, "it's not quite as striking in daytime, of course, but you can make the water pink or yellow, a whole range of colors, you see?" Which she demonstrated by flipping the wall switches. "What was that movie where the kid got electrocuted?" asked the bodyguard. She glanced over her shoulder quickly, but the driver and dictator weren't near. The bodyguard had to be addressing her. He was towering, but with a handsome face, almost sweet. "This little kid dove into a pool at this party, but the lights under the water were broken. The poor kid got electrocuted, died right away. You know which movie I'm talking about?" "Sorry, I think I may have missed that one." "Matt Damon," said the bodyguard, nodding, and walked away from her. "Okay, let's keep going," said the driver. The dictator wasn't coming with them.